Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Hi-Fi Preschool and Kids Weekly Training Podcast. My name is Crystal Mazuka. I am part of the Hi-Fi team, and I am here with Rachel Raquelme and Jeremy Carroll, and we are so excited to dive into a brand new Simple Truth and new themes this month. Jeremy, are you super excited?
I'm so excited. I can't tell you how excited that I am about this particular truth.
Rachel, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you?
10.
A 10.
For sure 10. Yeah.
For sure 10.
Super special. Yeah.
This one is super special. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if I should say it, but one of the reasons I'm really excited about this one, and this is a little bit downer, but this is the last time we do this truth in this way.
It's true.
So cycle 2, or for our second 3-year cycle, we're going to be changing this truth. More about that will come in the future. And in fact, when you're listening to this, we'll have started rolling out some information about our second 3-year cycle. But I think this is it. We're not discarding the truth. We're just kind of reframing it in a slightly different way to make it the language to fit better. I'm really excited that we get to have this season, this month with this truth.
Absolutely. And so what we are going to be focusing on this month is the unique ways that God has designed every single kid, every single preschooler that's going to be coming into your ministry, which is just so fun. So preschool has the big deal, head to toe, God made me special. And for kids, our simple truth is I am uniquely designed with the theme priceless. And I almost sang it because I love the theme song this month. Priceless, so one of a kind. Anyways, you don't want to hear me sing. That's not why you're listening. Our theme verse, it's kind of funny because it actually comes from the exact same psalm and the same verse, but preschool and kids are doing 2 different parts. So kids is doing Psalm 103A, which is acknowledge that the Lord is God, he made us and we are his. And preschool is doing Psalm 103B, which is he made us and we are his people, the sheep of his pasture. So we are going to have a great time this month, really focusing on that incredible God-given truth that we are uniquely designed by him, including so many aspects of our lives. So this very first week, we get to talk about preschool and kids have a little bit of a different main idea, but we're getting across the same heart. Preschool is my name is special to God, and kids is my name matters to God. And our Bible story comes from 1 Samuel 3, God called Samuel. So before we jump into this idea of our names being special to God or our names mattering to God, we always have a fun little icebreaker so you get to know us, but it's also a great question to ask your friends, ask your team, ask the people that you're working with. And so here is our question, Jeremy and Rachel. What is the story behind your name?
Oh, okay. So mine's kind of funny because I was born at 31 weeks. So very quick, unexpected. And my parents had decided it was set in stone that my name was going to be Hannah. And so my mom had an emergency C-section where she was under anesthesia. And while she was in recovery, my dad went to the NICU and he saw me and he named me Rachel.
Are you serious?
And he went and told my mom because he said, I looked like a Rachel. I didn't look like a Hannah. And he said, Rachel has a meaning about being patient while suffering. And it was a hard start. And so he said it was perfect. And she was okay with it, thankfully.
That is awesome. What a fun story.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So I was trying to think, there may be a story about my name. I don't know. Honestly, I've shared this on the podcast in the past. My brain, I don't have a lot of long-term recollection from my childhood and those kinds of things. And I didn't bother asking my mom about this one. So I won't tell you about my name, but I will say, so my wife and I have 6 kids. And when we named our children, not their first names, but each of their middle names, we knew it was really important to us for them to have a family name. And so for my oldest daughter, for example, her name is Jaden Michelle. And so Michelle is my sister-in-law, my wife's oldest sister. And there's some other there's other ties into the family, and many of them have 3 or 4 different connections to it. And so that middle name was a special moment for us to figure out, okay, what's going to be that family tie connection to
Mm-hmm.
other important people in our lives, so that they carry that namesake on.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Well, listeners, the whole reason that we asked this has to do with obviously our main ideas and our Bible story this week. And it's this idea that names matters. And especially we know that in the Bible, right? That biblical names were chosen very intentionally. And people today still choose names very intentionally. But whether or not your name was chosen randomly after you're born, like Rachel, or you have no idea what your name, why it was chosen, like Jeremy, or it had a very intentional purpose, like Jeremy with his kids and their middle names, we can know that our names matter and they are special to God. And so, Rachel, I want to start and just let's step back a little bit from this week and talk more about the simple truth and our focus for this month in general. Why does it matter, this idea of being special to God and uniquely designed? Why does that matter when it comes to a lifelong relationship with God?
Yeah, I think it's so important because it first of all shows us and reminds us that we aren't just random. We're not just
Mhm.
randomly here. Um, and it's not by happenstance, that we are who we are, but
Yeah.
instead we are uniquely designed and we are special. And so God has crafted each one of us with personality traits, features,
Mhm.
talents, gifts, unique things that are only for us. And He didn't just like look at a menu, and say like, oh, A for Crystal, B for Jeremy, give Crystal a little more C. Like it didn't work that way. Instead, he chose, he designed, each one of us. And I think it's so important because he didn't just design us to design us or design us. He only for good works, but he designed us for relationship. He designed us to know him deeply and to love him. And I think that is so special and important for kids and preschoolers to understand that they are on purpose. They are designed by God to know him and love him and
Mhm.
follow him closely. And yes, God has a purpose for their life, and He's designed them for that purpose. But even more so than that, they get to know Him and love Him, and in that unique way they were designed to.
Mhm. That is so good. And I was reading a book yesterday, and it was talking about the idea that every single person, well, it said every single person is born with a nose. That actually kind of made me laugh because not everybody has a nose, but most people have a nose.
Yeah,
But even if you don't, right? Like we all have that feature, and yet not a single one of us has it the same. And so that whole idea, like you said, that not only did God design everything about us, but he also designed us to have a relationship with him. And I think it's neat too that this month we even get to talk about how, like, my relationship with God doesn't look exactly the same as your relationship does, Rachel, or your relationship does, Jeremy. Even those relationships are unique and special to who we are. And I just think it's going to be so fun for preschoolers and kids to recognize how intentional God is in the way that he designed each of us and the way that he designed our lives. There is nothing that is a mistake. There is nothing that is out of his control. There is nothing that is a reaction to something that happened. So I think it's going to be a great month, and our main ideas are going in several different directions that give such cool different ways to look at this idea of being uniquely designed. And so, thinking of that, Jeremy, let's go into this week specifically. So, we've got this story from 1 Samuel 3 of God calling Samuel. Our main idea again is my name is special to God for preschool, my name matters to God for kids. Jeremy, how does the story of God calling Samuel teach that our names are special and matter to God?
I think this is one of those stories that it's in some ways it's right out there in front of us, but in other ways it gets kind of buried because it happens several times where God calls Samuel, but
Mm-hmm.
the point is not really the name. The point is that he's calling Samuel up and getting him ready for some work.
Mhm.
But because it happens so many times, it really is important. We don't want to overlook that idea.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I find fascinating about this story is that in 1 Samuel 3, in verse 1, the end of that verse says, the word of the Lord was rare and prophetic visions were not widespread. And so I'm thinking, what do we do as kids ministry leaders if we need somebody? We usually start with an all call, don't we? Like we say, all right, we got this need in our ministry and we need to do this. We start with this all call. Is anybody can come? Anybody wants to help us out. But God didn't do that. And in a
Mhm.
day where the word of the Lord was rare, you might think God may have just kind of put it into a whole bunch of people's hearts to rise up. And maybe he did that and we just don't know. But what we do know is that he specifically called out to Samuel. He he called out with a name. He was
Mhm.
specific in that. He was personal in that. One of the most personal things that you can do when you want to make a real connection with somebody is use their name. Ministry leaders y'all probably all done this. Crystal, Rachel, you may have done this too. But have you ever been in ministry and you're like, that kid comes in, maybe who doesn't come very often, and you can't see their name tag, and so you're like, "Hey, buddy, go, good
Yeah.
to see you. Come on in." Like, and but if I can say, "Hey, Matthew, I'm so excited to see you, Matthew. I
Yeah.
can't wait to get in and study the Bible with you, whatever that is." Like when that child hears their name,
Mm.
it does something in them. And think about it in your own life with someone, whether you haven't seen them in a while, but somebody who you're connected, and they use your name.
Mhm.
That's a relational connection moment that is personal. It could be the starting point of a more intimate type of personal connection. Like that is just something special. And so I think that it's really important that when we think about God calling out to Samuel, he used that name. He intentionally wanted to make a personal connection to say,
Mm.
Samuel, you matter. Your name, not
Mhm.
your name, does matter, and I'm going to use that name that you have to call out to you specifically to say, "Hey, I see you, I recognize you, and I want to call you up. I want to raise you up for what I have in store for you." So I think doing that is that beginning point of a real connection moment, and it really is a starting moment. Even though Samuel was in the temple with Eli, or in that place with Eli, like that was he was already in the right context, but now that calling that name took it to the next level of relational
Yeah.
connection.
And I know that like the hope and the heart behind choosing this Bible story is that preschoolers and kids will see that God's notice of them, love for them, invitation to them is individual.
Mm,
We can often fall into the habit when we talk about God and his love and salvation, and we say this is a gift available for everyone. God loves the world, and it's true. Like we want to make it big, and we want to recognize that this is available for everyone, but it's not everyone like as a collective giant faceless blob of people. It is for every single person, individual by name. God loves and knows and designed every single one of us, but also like Rachel, he knows you by name. He knew even before you were born at 31 weeks, and that moment was going to happen when your dad walked into the NICU and changed your name without your mom knowing. He knew, like, he probably even laughed when they had the conversation of, you're going to be named Hannah. And he's like, yeah, right, Hannah. Like Jeremy, he knows why your parents picked your name, even if you don't
yes,
know. Like he
yeah.
knew it was excited about Michelle being your oldest daughter's middle name. And so knowing that God knows us so personally and so individually is going to be so exciting for preschoolers and kids to discover this week through this story. While we may not hear God call our names audibly like Samuel did, we can know that our names do matter to him, which is going to be just incredible. So speaking of names, by the way, it's going to be great that we teach preschoolers and kids this week that their names are special and they matter to God. But we also know as leaders, we can struggle with names. Am I right? Like the longer you serve, the more kids you see. it can get really, really hard to just keep track of those names. And with Hi-Fi, we say all the time, like, use names, use names. Like, names matter when it comes to creating connection and belonging. We know that. But if you are anything like me, you might really struggle to remember names. And if you've got those kids who hate the name tags, they're constantly pulling them off or putting it under a jacket or, whatever it is. It can be really hard. And so, Jeremy, Rachel, let's just get really practical here for a minute. What tips do you have for leaders who might struggle to remember kids' names and therefore might struggle to use their names and create that sense of connection and belonging in ministry? How can we help them right now?
Well, so I'll start here. I think so. One of the things that I get to do that, and I actually don't get to do it this summer, but most summers I get to go be a camp pastor for our Central Kid camps for
Mm,
a week or two every summer, and I love doing that. And one of my most intentional things is learn as many kids' names as possible.
hmm
And when I say it's intentional, like it really is. And I keep a list, and I could go back to a list today of all the kids' names I learned last summer. Like I keep a list, I make a note of it. Um, it's been, I even have ministry leaders ask me, like, how do you remember all of their names? Like
hmm
like you'll walk up to their lunch table and you'll call them all by name. Now that's a different context than a normal weekend type ministry, but um, so people ask me what is it? So here are the things that I do that have helped me. May not help everybody, but these are some of the things that I do. So, and one of the things is that as soon as I meet a new child, I say their name at least 3 times, not in a
Yeah.
weird awkward way like Crystal, 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 but like I will say it. But like I would just say, Crystal, I am so glad to see you. I can't wait for you to get to come into our group and get to this. Crystal, what are some of your favorite things that you love to do? Crystal, do you have a favorite color? And so I use at least 3 times in those first few sentences. That helps me put, as I'm looking you dead in the eye, I'm going to
hmm
look at you in the eye and I'm going to say your name 3 times. So that really helps me as a starting point. And then that question, which I said is like, do you have a favorite color, or what do you like to do for fun? Those kinds of questions. I will start with those questions, because the other thing that really helps me is if I can make a connection to something that is a one of the things that we talk about is being seen is one level of connection, being known is a different level of connection. When I know things
Totally.
about you, when I know what you like, what you dislike, what do you do on the weekends, what do you do for fun, what is your favorite color, all those kinds of things. That's a different level of being known. And so if I can say, like, hey Bailey, I'm so glad that you're here. Bailey, what's your favorite color? And inevitably Bailey's going to say, I like baby blue, not just blue, but baby blue. So now I have this alliteration. Bailey likes baby blue. And so if she says it to, oh, I like baby blue. I say, Bailey, you like baby blue. That's so fun to say. Bailey likes baby blue. And so like I could say that, putting that alliteration or putting that connection, it's not always as clean as something like that. But if I can say their name and then say what they like, repeat it back to them when they tell me, that helps me to create a mental image of that child doing that thing, of okay, I know now that's something they like to do. So those are a couple of tricks that I use: saying their name several times right when I first meet them, and then
hmm
asking that next level question to connect their name to something that they enjoy.
That's super fun. I actually had a friend in college who was incredible at remembering names. And that whole thing of like using their name over and over and over the first time you meet them is exactly how he did it. And also, Jeremy, I will say that alliteration thing is never something I've thought of, but I think that you could even make it that you find something that you could connect
Mm-hmm.
it to. So I could be like, so Jeremy, would you rather have a jelly filled donut or jelly beans?
Yep.
And if you answer that, then I can remember Jeremy likes jelly beans based on the answer. So you almost give the prompt to have something. I'd be like, Rachel, would you rather pet a raccoon or a rabbit? And she
Yep.
would give her answer. And then I can remember that. So,
Raccoon.
yes, you would rather pet a raccoon.
And I will eat
Absolutely.
both jelly donuts and jelly beans. Raspberry jelly donut and jelly bean. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm all going to answer both
Yeah.
of those.
But you can even give that
Yeah.
alliteration option to help with that. That's really fun.
Yeah.
Rachel, do you have
Or
any
or a
other tip?
rhyming one. A rhyming one
Or,
works too, as long
yeah,
as you don't do it in
yeah,
a mocking
Mm.
way, as long as you're careful with
yeah.
it. But you can use a rhyming thing like, Bailey likes. I was trying to think. I had one earlier. You know, Bailey likes plays, like things like, so you can even use, so alliteration and rhyming are the two kinds of things that
Yeah,
I try to think about when I meet somebody.
that's really fun.
Sorry,
Did you
Rachel,
have
I cut you
something else?
off.
No,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
fine. I was just going to reiterate saying the name over and over. And I think one thing we haven't mentioned yet about saying their name several times is that helps you make sure you're pronouncing it correctly. Because I think not
Mm.
just knowing someone's name, but pronouncing it the way that they want it to be pronounced matters, getting it right.
Oh, yes.
And I think it shows respect and care. Um, and so I would say that. And then I keep phone notes, like all sorts of phone notes on Sunday
Mm-hmm.
morning, about different things from my classroom I teach in. And one is I will put names in my phone note of like new preschoolers that were in our class. And I'll put a couple of things about them. And that helps me remember them. Also, jotting that down, and it helps me go back and look again. But also it prompts me to send them a card. And so
Mm-hmm.
I meet them, I learn their name, and then I send them a card. And I think notes and saying their name are what really helps me.
Absolutely. I love that. And I do appreciate you bringing up the whole like making sure you're pronouncing their names the correct way. And I would even also just suggest to leaders if you aren't sure, it's okay to ask again. Am I saying your
Mhm.
name right? Am I saying your name the way that I'm supposed to? I want to make sure that I'm saying it correct. That is so, so good, Rachel. Thank you for bringing that up. Leaders, we are so excited for you to teach this week, for you to lead this month, for you to help kids recognize just that they are special and that God made them special. God made them unique, that they are seen, that they are known, that they are loved, and that they are valued. And so we hope that you'll join us again next week where we get to talk about how our lives are special and matter to God. And until then, we hope that you will enjoy creating real connection and true belonging in your ministries.